Good afternoon, everybody. It's 1:40 in the afternoon, February 16th, 2026, and it's Monday. And, well, we have minus 12 out here. We're getting cold weather again in Minsk. I was so happy I could go jogging when it was like 1 degrees, and I guess that was short-lived. So, I don't know. I kind of started yesterday and it's slipping around in the ice all over. No slush, but a lot of ice. So, forget that one then. I guess I got to wait a few more days. Who knows? Okay, we're looking at the world, and it's like a new world. I wrote in one, I tell you what, I wrote in one title of my videos, I said something about the New World Order. I don't know if you guys got that, but I got some note that it's a conspiracy theory, that I'm a conspiracy theorist. And I was going by what Marco Rubio said, basically also what Mark Carney, the leader of Canada, said. And now Mertz, and how many people are talking about it? They're basically all saying the old world order is over. And some of them are not necessarily saying we have a new world order, but if it's not a new world, well, then what is it? Sure, we're in a time of chaos, and we have so many things going on, all brought about by our fearless leader, Donald Trump, of course. Everything, he's tied to all of this stuff. What is it? It's the kidnapping of Maduro. It's the demand of taking Greenland for America. And it's the Epstein files. All of this stuff is stemmed to Donald Trump. It's absolutely incredible. Like I've always said, he just likes to upset the apple cart, tip the apple cart over. Everybody's looking for apples everywhere. That's the New World Order, the apple cart order, I guess you could say. Some are calling it is it the Epstein era or the people are, memes are getting made like the Epstein class, and you can't get around this stuff. Here, I'm trying to get away from this a little bit, but it's like, and it's so defining. It's so defining for us to understand what the heck is going on in the world. These people, and they're all entwined in it. Some of these, what do you call them? The movers and the shakers. Not all of them, but maybe some are too young, or maybe some are not really entwined, but a lot of them are. Nevertheless, it defines what's going on in this certain class of people. And yes, including Donald Trump. Donald Trump's name, what do they say? It was in some congressional, what was that? Before the House Judiciary Committee. And I think was it Pam Bondi they were asking? No, it was Kash Patel, the director of the FBI. And he was basically, what was he? They just avoid the questions completely. And they're trying to ask him how many times Donald Trump's name was mentioned in there. And, he wouldn't consent to 5 times, and he wouldn't consent to whatever. But anyway, it's way over 1,000 times, I guess, that he's mentioned in there. And it's not that he necessarily, I tell you what, he's got a lot of allegations against him. You guys all know that. And there are some things that came out. And I think I saw some report saying that all the Epstein files that are going to be released are released, and they're not going to release the other half or more than half. And what about all these videos? Of course, they can't release these videos. These things are really damning. And you hear about some of the stuff. Absolutely shocking. Some of the most shocking things. And there's so much things of murders and blackmail and killing of little girls during sex and things like that. It's just terrible. And then the cannibalism allegations, possibilities, and it's like, I don't know. But anyway, let's get a little bit, change gears. I'll get back to Epstein in a little bit here. This is going to be a long video for any of you guys that don't want, well, you're going to see already before you click the button. It's going to be a long video. I'm going to be hitting all kinds of topics. A lot about Epstein stuff, a lot about Germany, Europe, the US, Ukraine, Russia, all kinds of things. Okay, let's start kicking it off a little bit more here. So I was going to start off by saying, and what's also defining, it's very defining, obviously, is Donald Trump is the one that is defining so much of this stuff. Anyway, what's going on in the world, there's probably no president in a long, long time that has made such an impact of what is going on in the world today than what Donald Trump is doing. Not Joe Biden or Obama or any of these people, but one of the most astounding things. I started off by saying, when Donald Trump was inaugurated, that that he was driven by success. And that's how I read it. But it's not quite that. It's a little bit different than that. Donald Trump, obviously, as we all know, is driven by ego. And it's sort of like, what is it? What's that little Yoda or something like, oh, this is connected to that, and success and ego. I mean, hey, is it the different sides of the same coin? Or anyway, they play upon each other. That's very obvious. And so if he's done by ego, then he'll cover up. I was thinking, success. Then he will try to do everything the right way, the best way. Whatever's best for America and for maybe humanity in general. But that's not the case. You have to maybe see, well, what is the thing? What are the things that drives Donald Trump? And obviously, one of them is, I was saying less of a fact is money, but maybe less, maybe personal wealth for him, because he finds it very easy to get money. But he wants to be going down as a success by what he thinks is maybe making a lot of money for America, but that's not necessarily what is happening. Or if he's making money, he's also costing America a lot of money. And a lot of this, what I'm going to be talking about, has to do with that as well. He's costing a lot of money. But like virtually all Western politicians, of course not all of them, but virtually all Western politicians, they're beholden to their political donors. And that definitely includes Donald Trump. And that's another thing I said at the very beginning. It must have been Israel. It's part theory and part obvious that Israel is mostly responsible for putting Donald Trump in the White House. And you could maybe indirectly say the threats of what Epstein knew also helped Donald Trump get into the White House. It's becoming clear in that way. I mean, I don't know if anybody is connecting those dots, but obviously there are dots there to be connected. It's undeniable. So it's Donald Trump, Israel, and of course those that are connected to Israel. And let's for example, you can look at Ted Cruz or Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, of course, the military-industrial complex. All his donors are military-industrial complex. He has a lot to do with Israel, and all these people are mostly all tied to Israel, tied to money. I mean, it's all the same thing, and you can find connections between all of their donors all over the place. And Jeffrey Epstein was even one place where they can do that. Wow. So 99%, not just Trump, 99% of all of the federal government politicians. And Israel, as I've said, so many other people know, or at least they've alluded to the fact that Israel knows that if they control the United States government, they can control the universe. They can, as a matter of fact, I think they even said universe. They did just the other day. Well, they can control about every country in the world, because the United States, look at Donald Trump. Obviously, he controls most of the world. He threatens tariffs, threatens bombings, he cuts you off, does everything possible. If you don't do what he wants to, you to do, and a lot of what Donald Trump wants you to do is a lot of what Israel wants Donald Trump to want them to do. It's all connected. Oh, this is a real heck of a world. I was talking to a federal agent, via messaging, and he lives here in Minsk, by the way. He was a high-ranking federal agent. Like I said, he lives here in Minsk, and this might be a very interesting video. I have to get a hold of him and talk to him, because one of his main jobs was he went after pedophiles. So I've mentioned that, but I actually would like to get him on here, and I don't know. I think he would consent, because I have done. I've sat with him on video podcasts. I don't know if he's talked on that subject, but I think he might be able to. But like myself, for example, I had to sign papers that said I will never talk about the things that I saw while I was in the military. With his higher upper ranking politicians and generals and things like that. That I'm not allowed to talk about it. But there's a few little things I won't talk about, because I think maybe I could get in trouble, but a lot of the things I'm still talking about, and you see everybody all over the place talking about it. I'm sure they've signed these non-disclosure agreements, such as Sybil Edmonds, and she said some really damaging things. Senators that were basically, and we all see it anyway, they're hooked to the hip with Israel. And we're talking about a long time ago. We're talking about 30 years ago. So this has been going for a long time. But I'm going on tangents. This video will last 20 hours if I don't start getting back to the subject here. Okay. Yeah. I'm seeing Donald Trump. He's also one of the things. It's very similar to Israel. I saw Benjamin Netanyahu on there. Oh, we're the victims. We're the victims, and he's talking about anti-Semitism going back as far as the Hellenistic in ancient Greece and all this. Oh, we're the victims. We're the victims. We're the poor victims all of the time. Oh boy. And it reminds you very much of Shylock in The Merchant of Venice, on the Shakespeare play, The Merchant of Venice. You know. He made some sort of a deal, and it was, I think, kind of like a joking deal for a pound of flesh. You've always heard the expression a pound of flesh. And he made a deal. He loaned money, technically speaking, or something, about the cargo or something of some, I forgot the names or whatever. But anyway, a storm, I guess, destroyed all the ships. So the guy didn't have the money to pay Shylock. And then Shylock was insisting on a pound of flesh. And then basically saying that he's a Jew and he's the poor victim, and and he needs to get his pound of flesh. What is that? Epstein, maybe you would call it jerky. If you're reading these files, some sick stuff. But no. This is all conspiracy theories and things. But I don't. It's not that Shakespeare's plays are based on true events or anything like that. But it's just some weird stuff, I don't know. It's just a weird connection. I just now made it, so I don't know. I didn't stop and think about it. Does this have anything to do? But why do they talk about bags of jerky in the freezer and all this stuff? But no, I don't know. I don't know. But I would think it's ridiculous. What was it? It says blood libels and all this kind of stuff, and the Spanish Inquisition and all of these weird things, and Benjamin Netanyahu is saying it's all ridiculous and stuff. And then sometimes it makes you think maybe it's not ridiculous when you start looking at the Epstein files, and don't even think about little babies and things. And child sacrifices and things that's even mentioned, I think, in there. This is some crap, I see some crazy crap in those files, But sorry, I'll be mentioning these things. I'm just trying to skim over them. I don't know. Some of it I'll go into a little detail, but you guys, I don't know. Really crappy stuff. So the United States, the poor United States, and poor Benjamin Netanyahu and poor Israel. We only control the world. We control all the financial instruments that run the entire world, and we can bomb anybody and do anything we want to, any country or any people we absolutely want to. But we're the victims. Trust me, we're the victims. Yeah. I mean, seriously. You guys all know this stuff. Anybody that watches my channel knows I'm not talking any donkey twaddle. I don't care if YouTube says I'm some kind of conspiracy theorist or something like that. This stuff is all true. This stuff, I mean, it's, and we saw this little tape and this girl on this, and this was many, many years ago. And it was like where some Epstein stuff was going on, and she was raving on the street. She was saying that they're eating people and stuff like that. They're eating children or whatever. And nobody had ever seen that woman again. She was gone. She disappeared because she came out of something like that. And it was like, and I tell you what, and she was really adamant about it, but she did not look like she was mad. She didn't look like she was mad. I mean, mad as in crazy mad. If you guys saw that video, I mean, and there's so much of this. And I don't know, maybe talk about some of these things during this long video. I got to keep going. But anyway, the United States holds the world's reserve currency, and everybody wants as much of that money as possible. And all these people, money, power, same sort of a deal. And they're all going for that. And a lot of these people, in this Epstein file stuff, a lot of it is with little children, but a lot of it is power, and some is both. And Sickening stuff. And Israel now has their most loyal puppet that they've ever had, even more than President Johnson, when President Johnson did all those things for Israel at a high price for American lives. You know the USS Liberty, that was the same time as the Lavon affair, and the United States was just minutes away from dropping a nuclear bomb on Cairo for Israel when they perpetrated all of that stuff that was happening with the USS Liberty. And what plays a part in that? Oh, the Russians heard the signal of the USS Liberty asking for help. And because the Russians heard the signal, that's the only reason why the United States, they didn't necessarily help the USS Liberty as Israel was bombing it, a US ship, and killing people. But they just didn't work to try to sink it and to get rid of it, to get rid of their embarrassment, for one thing. It's like even back in 1967, the United States was ready to go to war for Israel. But sometimes it's a bridge too far. Maybe public opinion was not going to allow that. Remember, Vietnam and things like that was still going on. People were protesting that. You got to think, who was it that commanded the aircraft carrier or that fleet where that bomber took off? There was a bomber with a nuclear bomb on it. And the commander that was in charge of that fleet was John McCain's dad. Isn't that incredible? Some things are actually tied together. John McCain, what was they calling him? It wasn't Songbird or Mockingbird. Remember when he was doing propaganda videos for the North Vietnamese trying to get Americans to surrender and things like that? No, but then he ran for president. Really? So anyway, let me keep going. This stuff. Oh, it's all conspiracy theories. I guess if you look under Google, assisted a search with AI, I'm sure that'll probably say that, like a lot of other things. You see with your own eyes, and then they say, that's not true. It never happened. Anyway, the U.S. money is actually fake money. It's, in a way, it's not really worth it. It has no intrinsic value, but we're all told that that's what we want to get. And it, at the moment, is... it buys us things fastest way you possible to trade it in for something like gold or silver maybe, or hey, even copper, anything. Too bad they already took a penny out of circulation. You could have really saved pennies. You'd need a heck of a lot of pennies to you'd have to fill this room to get, to be worth a gold brick. I mean, you have to fill it 10 times maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so it's sustaining the largest military in the world, and it's paying Israel this U.S. dollar, but it's obviously the instrument of power. And if that is gone, it's gone. It's curtains for the USA. So yeah, Israel, obviously, we know the biggest obstacle for Israel to do anything they want is, at least in the Middle East, is Iran. They have no obstacles in the United States because they own the United States. Most people all know that. Let's see. Yeah. So I'm wondering if a lot of us are like in the media, like myself. I'm just a small channel and just one kind of a guy, and I repeat a lot of things I hear from over here. But you have people like Candace Owens and Jimmy Dore, Jackson Hinkle, the Young Turks, and if Israel gets their way and they take over all media, which is what they're trying to do, as you guys all know, that's what Benjamin Netanyahu said. That is the main battleground is right now, and it's the social media. And he bragged about TikTok. He's got CBS, he's got Disney, he's got Paramount, and half of, or maybe that, most of Hollywood, and most of all the news channels. And I mean, some of us are still now putting out these videos on YouTube, but there's going to be a time when that ends. And so what happens after that? And X, he says that they run X too. What happens when this stuff ends? So I don't know where I'm going to be. I'm working on something right now though. So let's keep going. But most of these guys, like I said, they spend their time crying victimhood or threatening. Netanyahu threatens. Donald Trump threatens everybody. Oh, we're the poor victim. We're the poor victim. You do what I tell you to do or else. But we're the victim. But we're the poor victim. You know, like Canada. Canada's a big demon right now, I guess. Anybody who does not do what Donald Trump, everything that Donald Trump wants them to do is some sort of a, I don't know, what are they? A psychopath, stupid, low IQ, all kinds of stuff that Donald Trump says. Absolutely. It comes with insults and threats in order to get his way with, and look at who else is, I mean, look at, who is it? Zelensky. What is he calling? A Victor, you know, meaning Viktor Orban. And he can't really ever give a speech without going after Putin and lately Viktor Orban. And they have elections pretty soon. I think it's going to be parliamentary elections in Hungary, and they're real, and even the European Union, most of them, they're really working against putting a lot of money trying to get rid of Orban so that they can force Ukraine. Well, a lot of them even still, even if they love Ukraine, a lot of them still don't want Ukraine in the European Union. And Putin really never had anything against it being in the European Union. He had a lot against it being in NATO. But there's even talk lately, and I've mentioned it before, and I'm serious. What's going to happen? Donald Trump, as you see, he's distancing himself to a certain extent from NATO, but yet he's staying with NATO. But he's just staying in as much as he feels he should stay in. And I seriously think, because you've heard talk about this, that if they can get Ukraine into NATO, I mean, into the European Union, then they're going to say, well, let's have a European army. And we don't need NATO anymore. And so there it is, Article 5. And everybody involved in that, in the European army, is going to have an Article 5. So I don't know if that means instant, immediate war against Russia for everybody, or what? I don't know. I guess it's something they're going to have to work out. But I seriously think that's going to be coming. So, yeah. In 2011, there was one email. I'll talk about some of these emails now. Epstein sent an email to, I guess, somebody on the island or whatever, to bury everything, to get rid of the mess or something like that. And he doesn't want to pay anything to take things off the island. And I don't know if you know what that has to do with. But when you hear about what happened in the ranch, you know, and some people are now saying, and it was, I think, in this congressional hearing even, people are mentioning that in these emails that there are people saying that there are bodies buried within around the ranch. And it's not just the 2 young girls that they were talking about. It's actually 7. And apparently, or several, they said not 7, several. Several normally means to me around 7. Maybe it's as low as 6, but it's at least 6. Maybe 7, maybe 8. Several. You know, what is a few? 2 or 3? I don't know. Is several 5 or 4? Maybe. I don't know. And it's more than 2 is all I'm saying. And these 2 young girls, I believe it was the 2 that they're talking about, they died during fetish sex, you know, with the strangulation. You know, it's like, ooh, it's supposed to intensify your whatever deal. Anyway, 2 young girls got, you know, died that way. And I guess that's the 2 that they're talking about that are buried near the Epstein's ranch, whatever they called his ranch in, I think, in New Mexico. You know, it's pretty isolated area, so they can do that. And, you know, walk a little bit out into the sands of the desert somewhere and with some shovels and some bodies and bury them, and who knows, who can find them? You know, can you? I don't know. It's not going to give off a heat signature. There are ways to find things, and there are different machines, you know, and you can do that. But who's going to be combing? You know, if it's surrounded the entire ranch, you know, if it's not, you know, you don't have to go towards the civilian side, but maybe you have to go into and obviously they will go into the most secluded areas, and then you got to be running a sweep with machines over that, and it's probably not that easy to find this, but you probably will find something. And I guess, like he says, bury something on the island even. He doesn't want to have to pay to get it off. Bury? Makes you wonder. Tie some stones and throw into the sea. And eventually what about the sulfuric acid that is supposed to dissolve even human bones? I mean, he ordered thousands of gallons of sulfuric acid, I guess. So what was that for? People don't know. Some people say that you can also be used for water purification, maybe desalinization. I don't have any idea. But I don't know. I'm not going to say much anyway. So anyway, I don't think so. I don't know. I don't want to get into it. I can find out about desalinization, but I don't think it's needed. So, what else? Let's see. But in the case of Israel, as you all know, saying they're the victims, oh, these Hamas people, they're throwing rocks at us. They've got rifles and we've only got fighter jets, F-35s and bunker buster bombs and Apache helicopters that can burn everything within 50 meters. They have rocks. They have rocks and rifles. Oh, somebody help us. Give us some money. Give us more billions. Yeah, I already mentioned about the Greeks. I always get ahead of myself on doing these notes here. Yeah. And as they say, Benjamin Netanyahu, he gets up there and he starts talking his BS all the time. And then there's times, he talks about, oh, so Christians can worship Jesus, and the Jesus this, and he hates Jesus, and he hates Jesus. And that's obvious. But he's got to get up there and be the master of deception. By way of deception, thou shalt do war. That's the motto of the Mossad, by the way. That is their bywords. And as you all know, in case you didn't know, I had to throw that in there. Yeah, he has to just get up there and act like he respects Jesus, and he doesn't, like a lot of other people and things. And he hates them, or people, it's the same thing. A lot of these people, the first thing they're going to do, oh, we're your friend, while they're stabbing you in the back and things. How many times has that happened? A lot of these elites, even regular people, all over the place. Terrible world, I don't know, duplicitous stuff. So, another question I always have myself asking is, have we ever wondered what the release, just the release itself of these Epstein files is all about? So why would they do this? You would think they could engineer something and destroy them or whatever, even if there's an entire semi-trailer filled with these things from floor to ceiling, millions and millions of documents, that they could somehow make them go away. And obviously they filtered out all of the very worst ones, and we're getting, some things might have slipped, the references to Donald Trump threatening to kill a girl and her family, if she talks about, her having sex with him. And whether it's true or not, I don't know. I have my own suspicions, and maybe the rest of you do too. Maybe it depends on if you're a Republican or a Democrat, or if you're left or if you're right. I don't subscribe to left and right, but anyway. Yeah, and there was some really terrible stuff, and I'll tell you, and I did connect the two dots. There's just two dots. Remember when there was a Epstein file, people talked about it just some days ago, and it was talking about some man, and most people skimmed right over it. They didn't think it was anything really important. But there was some guy, and he's talking with Epstein, and he's saying, how are we going to share one piece of pizza among us, men or many or whatever? But he's talking about that there are a number of men and that they have to share one piece of pizza. And unless you're really incredibly stupid, you got to know that's all code words, obviously. The jerky and grape soda, which I don't know what grape soda is yet, but pizza and jerky and stuff. And I found out pretty much what pizza is. But what this guy talking about sharing a piece of pizza, there was one, it was a really horrible story. And I guess they even had a photo on there. But the photo was blacked out double. So it was blacked out, and then they put a blackout over the top of the blackout because there was a photo of some very young girl and men in there, and they had her I can't remember if it was said she was totally naked or not, but she was at least naked in her private areas, and they had her legs spread apart, and she had bruises on her face, and she was bleeding from some wounds and bleeding from her private parts as well. And these guys are standing around like holding her legs apart, and they show some guy with a shirt off. I don't know. It sounded to me like there was at least 4 men there, and I'm sort of thinking that has to do maybe even with that one email talking about sharing a piece of pizza. And this apparently was a very young girl. I think it was pre-puberty girl. This is some... I'm sorry to be talking about this stuff, people, but it is actually... I've said in my other videos, like the world of yin and yang, for there to be, light, maybe for us to recognize light, we have to recognize darkness as well, that because without one, you don't have the other, then everything is either light or everything is very dark. And you don't, it's just, you have to see that there are both two sides. So when you hear about all of this really devilish stuff, it's, it kind of, in a way, when you walk around, when you don't think about this stuff, you start to appreciate your own life a little bit. And then you think about the hard times that some people are put through and the evil things that types of people do. Rich, powerful men, unfortunately. And that's what's running the Western societies. And with me, I tell you, I hear about all of this stuff. And I'm sure things happen in Belarus, but not on this scale, and maybe not so bad, and not so often. And there's not any reports, because I'll tell you, there's one really good thing about having a leader that they call an autocratic leader. As long as this person does have a sense of morals, greater than Donald Trump's, of course, or Merz, or Starmer, or Macron. So luckily, we are over here in Belarus, and I would hope that even if Belarusians are watching this, that they learn that they have something to appreciate, that there is a person that would not stand for that stuff that runs this country. So, and you do that, you're in some deep doo-doo. So, just to say. So that is the yin and yang of life. So appreciate what you have. I guess count your blessings is maybe what some people would say that are following the Bible. Okay. A long video, already half an hour. Oh, I'm not even halfway through. Anyway, you probably get the idea of what a piece of pizza is now for these guys. Or when they come for pizza, it's a young, underage girl, obviously. And I think maybe there's something to do with blood and pre-puberty, taking of virginity, as relation to tomato sauce. I think that's maybe a clear look at things, and I don't know if anybody's told you guys that, but anyhow. Yes, they have incidences, girls as young as 9 years old. Like I said, beatings, there's torture, there's murders, this is the stuff that we get. There's blackmail and ransom. And that's in the ones that they released. Just think of the stuff they didn't release, or the stuff that they're never going to release. And like I said, they're saying that's all that they're going to release. So, they said that's all that's pertinent, or something like that. Yeah, right. And it looks like you didn't get through all those emails quite as well as you should. So what about these other millions of emails and messages, and God forbid the videos and the photos are... Anyway. Well, there is some better news. A rich, beautiful, elite German woman, very attractive. They even show her picture. Blonde hair. She asked in an email for Epstein to impregnate her. So, yeah. And she's a very rich, elite, I guess probably of a sort of a nobility family in Germany. It's not the Turnen, Taxis, or Hohenzollern. You know, you never even hear about the Hohenzollerns, but the Hohenzollerns, I think, luckily, they're staying mostly always out of this stuff. The Hohenzollerns were the royal family of Germany. They were the ruling, that was the emperor of Germany, just like the Romanovs were in Russia and the Habsburgs were in Austria. The Hohenzollerns were the ones, and that's the one I studied. I've been to Hohenzollern Castle. I've been to, they had another, and one up near near the border of Holland, near Nijmegen, Kleve in Germany, but their main castle is in the Swabian Alps. It's it's near Neckargemünd. It's south of Stuttgart. Neckargemünd, Tübingen, another fabulous place that you should go to. But it's in that area in the Swabian Alps, and very beautiful castle. For some reason, they don't ever tell you about it. When people, make tours to go to Germany, there's no tours virtually going to Hohenzollern Castle, but you should make a detour and go to Hohenzollern Castle. There is even a church in the town, and I'm trying to think of the town's name, that's right nearby there. There's even apparently icons from the time of Jesus in that church. And like parts of the cross maybe, or something like that. But even like the what you could consider the royal jewels of the Hohenzollern family, like crowns and scepters and things like that, are at Hohenzollern Castle. And by the way, the Hohenzollerns still live in that castle. It's absolutely incredible. I don't know if there's any tours in English. Most of them are German. Germans go there, strangely enough. Lots of tour buses and things. Americans don't really know about it. Also, beautiful view, beautiful castle. It's very beautiful. It's probably just as beautiful, at least, as Neuschwanstein, which all Americans know. Anyway, just so you know that, I should be talking about news. Anyway, this rich, beautiful German lady. But in these files and everything, mostly it's the U.S. elite and the Israeli, Jews, and mostly Jews and U.S. elite. But of course, there are Germans and Swedes, U.K. elite, all in there. And the perpetrators mostly, the rich ones, and then they got us poor, useless eater, peon peoples. They got us from all over the place there. A lot of them to die, get mutilated, and whatever, get used, and then cast out or whatever. A lot of the young girls, before they know what they're doing, they think they might want to go there, and they're probably lured to this island. And those that decide they don't want to stay there, and it wasn't what they were told, or not what they were made to believe, they cannot be convinced, something happens to them, and I don't want to even use my voice as jokingly, like, something's gonna happen to you, but they do these, I don't know, it's too sad to talk about this. So what is the purpose? I was trying to get to the purpose. What is the purpose of the release of these Epstein files? And I tell you, I don't think anybody's talking about it. We're all going, ooh and ah and all that. But one of the purposes, or two, actually it's two purposes. They might just be to send a message to us peons, that these elites, these rich elites, they can do any of these things. And guess what? The Department of Justice and the FBI, they're not going to do anything. These people, the 90%, their names are blacked out, a lot of them. The ones that are still useful, I guess, their names are blocked out. Nothing's going to happen to them. They're not going to face anything. But the victims, their names are out there. And what restitution are they going to get? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Do you think they're going to... maybe even revenge is a sweet little thing to see when you see these men that have done whatever they've done to these women, that they want to see something happen to them, to these men at the very least. And it's not going to bring anything back. I don't know. I don't know what's in their head, I guess if you're a Christian, you're supposed to say, well, so what, They raped me, they beat me, they mutilated me, and, that's fine. I guess I'll just live with it. Turn the other cheek. Yeah, but, Yeah, I guess it's a message to us useless eaters that they can just do anything they want to us, and there's nothing that we can do about it. As long as these people are rich and they are elites. And I guess what you got to do if you have a cute little daughter or something, you better, I don't know, make her fat or dress her ugly or I don't know what the heck, keep her away from anybody ever discovering her. Jeez. And that was even a video. I guess it was in, I don't know. I get to that. I wrote it down here, but I'll get to that. It's even peons stealing little kids from peons. So we're just the playthings of the elites, something to be used and then cast aside. Maybe they throw us some money and we think, $100, you know. I guess a lot of these girls are promised like $100 or something like that. And then they have all these places. They have Epstein's places in New York. They had his ranch in there. So it wasn't just on the island. It was in a lot of places. And then you have, you know, I guess you could say they're all Israeli-controlled elites because this was done through Epstein. Epstein, undeniably, I don't care what anybody says, and we all know that. Anybody that has any sense, that has a brain that is working at 3 brain cells, knows that Epstein, at the very least, is an asset of Mossad, at the very, very least, if not a full agent, if not one of the best agents, one of the senior agents of Mossad. But he's definitely an asset at the very least. Some people, I'll tell you what, they're assets and they don't even realize they're assets. But Epstein definitely knew. He has said in some of his emails, he said to people, you know, I work for the Rothschilds, you know, and the Rothschilds, you know, who's the one? Oh, who's the one that actually actually was mostly responsible for establishing this country called Israel? Is the Balfour Declaration, as you all know, in 1917. Lord Balfour, he was, for the most part, working for the Rothschilds. And, oh, what a tangled web. And, of course, you have to just look up some history, and maybe you can write it down and you can connect some of the dots. But, it's kind of like they actually own Israel, or they run Israel, or they are very intricately involved in it. Same as, like, what is it? Not Blackwater. What is it? Blackwater? Anyway, BlackRock. Pfft. They have ownership of a lot of the world too. But the banks, and most of them are all Rothschild's banks anyway. All of these central banks. The Caribbean Central Bank, where I used to live, that's also Rothschild's. The Federal Reserve, Rothschilds, Goldman Sachs, they're all tied together. JP Morgan Chase. Anyway, that you guys know that stuff. It's finance stuff. So Israel holds anyway, at least even through Epstein and all of this stuff, in many ways, they hold the power of manipulation, with money and with sex and everything over the entirety of the United States government. And you can, like I said, you control the government. Yeah, you control the U.S. government. And as they said, I say in half my videos, as Israel says, it's cheaper to buy an American politician than it is to buy a tank. So there you go. Yeah, and they're all open for business, except for Thomas Massie. That's why they're out to really get Thomas Massie. Yeah, they put like nearly, I think it is all, in truth, it's way over $1 billion for a congressional seat. A congressional seat, not even a Senate seat, a congressional seat. They put over $1 billion to try to get rid of Thomas Massie of Kentucky. And you people of Kentucky, if there's any of you out there, well, please tell me if there's anybody out there in Kentucky that watches this video, please send me an email and, vote for Thomas Massie if he's in your, if you're in the constituency of Thomas Massie. So, but Israel's now out to conquer the final frontier. To boldly go, not to go, it's supposed to be to go boldly, but to boldly go where no manipulator has gone before. Social media, BlueTube, and Hex, and all of these things to control them, one ring to bind them all. Gosh, it's not even funny when you think about it. My God, I don't find it funny. But I do find it funny, but it's not funny. It's a game, but it's not a game. Anyway, like soccer. I don't know. Yeah. But in time, it's going to be very difficult to come up with a voice of resistance. And I was thinking that Belarus is going to come up with a double to YouTube. And of course, you have Rumble, and I guess maybe that is for the most part free, but that's why you don't get it when you buy a television. Oh, it always comes with YouTube, but it doesn't come with Rumble. I wonder why that is, but eventually, I don't know. A lot of people, I guess, are casting aside TikTok, at least in America. I don't know. Does Israel control it here through Larry Ellison? The guy from Oracle. They control a lot. Oh my God, I get depressed if I keep thinking about this stuff. So anyway, we got to seek some kind of to have our freedom and our independence. And everybody, like even all of these channels that I mentioned, support these people. And everybody should support everybody else. And then you see some of these people that are hijacked. They're either steered away or they always were. Ben Shapiro. Oh. And, it's weird. Charlie Kirk. Look at Charlie Kirk. What was happening to him? He was getting out of that rat race, and therefore he had to be sterilized. They had to get rid of him, and now they got it again. They got TPUSA, and hopefully the whole thing is gonna sink. And see, TPUSA, they were even running stuff with girls, like I've told you guys before. They were with these groups and so-called Christian groups and all that deal, and they had through certain these so-called Christian leaders and things, and they had these houses, and they would take these teenage girls that maybe ran away or were kicked out of their home or something, and they get pregnant or whatever, and they gave them a place to stay, and until the baby, and then they were trying to convince them to supposedly give up their baby for adoption, and whether they adopted them or sent them to some place like Epstein or for other purposes is another story. And then there was one girl that she said she's going to keep her baby, and they drugged her to induce labor just before her day when she was supposed to deliver, and they took that the baby. They told her that the baby died in childbirth, and probably didn't, and they, because the girl wanted to keep the baby, and anyway, that's the gist of what I was going to say. There's probably more details that I didn't say about that, but they're connected to TPUSA. Oh, Christian groups and things like that. Oh, yes, indeed. Oh, there's too much of this stuff. I don't even want to think about it. I don't know. I don't like doing these videos. Even if I find it is necessary to say this stuff. By way of deception. And I mean, it works not just for the Mossad and for Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump, of course. There's other people. They're doing it all over the place. Even Christians, I guess, apparently. Or people that say they're Christian. But if you guys there's Christians out there, and a lot of people, and I know that I sometimes I can piss Christians off, if I say my view, and, whether I'm a Christian or not, I don't even know how to judge it myself, because I get so mixed up. People say, if you don't believe everything in the Old and the New Testament, then you're not a Christian. You have to believe everything that's in there, because God wrote it, according to even Charlie Kirk. He's the author, but I never saw his name in there. I never saw that he authored it. I was thinking that there were different things that were handed down for many, many years, and I didn't, things, and it's a known fact, and it's even written down from ancient times that there were a lot of things that were not quite connected in the Bible, and they connected them. Other people wrote things in, so things were added to. I'm even talking about the New Testament. In the Old Testament, obviously there's a lot of stuff that's in there. And then you look at all the books that weren't put in there, I mentioned before. And how dare you speak about the book of Thomas or the book of John or even Enoch or the Egyptian Bible or any of these things. And like I said, I'm not a scholar. Who has waded through all of that stuff? There's a lot of stuff. And then who always really understands that? Like the book of Thomas, supposedly Thomas was writing down things that Jesus was saying. It's a little similar to like how the Quran was actually written, when Muhammad would recite these things after he had gone into trances and things up to the year, and he stopped. Oh, he was epileptic, they say. But well, then how come it was gone? Normally it would be worse when you're 50. But he never had any of these trances anymore. At a certain time, it stopped. And then scribes would be writing the things down as Muhammad was reciting them, right, when he came out of these trances that he was in. And but anyway, Thomas was supposedly writing down things as Jesus said. I guess he knew he was a gifted person, and he was writing down things that Jesus would say. Whether some of those things were even altered afterwards or not, who knows? But of course, they didn't put the book of Thomas in the New Testament. And of course, maybe some preachers and things, I guess maybe depending on how close they are to Israel, they will tell you, oh, don't look at those things. Don't look at the Gnostic text. Stay away from those. Satan or something like that. The Russians, Putin. I don't know. Don't do it. Like I said, and I'm not telling you to do it, and I'm not suggesting people to do it, but you might be curious. And if you have a mature mind, and if you are believing in certain things in Christianity and maybe it doesn't jive, at least you should question things like that. I mean, but it's kind of like even in the Orthodox Church in Russia, they told people not to watch that movie, The Da Vinci Code, and not to read the book, I guess, approximately, because of a lot of the stuff that was in there. And a lot of that stuff is in history, and I even forgot what it was, but it was some things, and I said, wow, you don't hear it very often. But this one guy who played Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, he's in the Da Vinci Code, and he starts talking about ancient things that was talked about. And I don't know if I've talked about it. Maybe it's things from Gilgamesh or Zoroastrianism or something like that. Some ancient. I'm not a big scholar on this stuff, but I know some things. But anyway, and maybe that's why they didn't want them to listen to, or watch this stuff. Even if these things are 1,000 or 2,000 years old, they didn't want people in their church to see it. The Orthodox Church, and then I was thinking, the Orthodox, but when you look at things in the Orthodox Church, it's because some priest said, they put some edict, don't watch this, and it's whatever. So what is it called? A fatwa in Islam, even though it's nothing that Orthodox Christians will have anything against, because I've read it anyway. So, but anyway, just because somebody said it, you have to follow it. That's all it is. So, but like I said, follow some of these guys, like Jackson Hinkle and Jimmy Dore and all that, Candace Owens, Kim Iverson, people that are trying to keep you awake, not woke, but awake. As Benjamin Netanyahu and a lot of these people that are all in collusion together are going to try to make sure that we have no way to keep each other, with the truth, anyway, free. Yeah, but some of these guys, they play like they're on our side, but they're not on our side. Like, I mentioned Ben Shapiro, and then it came out. Remember when Israel declared, I think the biggest enemy is Candace Owens, a black woman. We had to get her, And then just yesterday, Benjamin Netanyahu was saying, oh, the blacks, yeah, they're successful because they kept on fighting. But then he goes after Candace Owens and some others. But anyway, they said that was enemy number one. So right away, you got Alex Jones out there. Candace Owens, Candace Owens, Candace Owens. And Tim Pool slamming his hand on the thing and all that sort of a deal. Candace Owens, we got to get her. And then what was their excuse? Oh, she's ruining it for the midterms for the Republicans. Well, the midterms are 11 months away. They were doing it. They were doing it back, what is it? In January. And so, and why was Candace Owens appealing to people? Because she's talking about the Epstein files. Well, who was the one? She's not a congressperson, Candace Owens, or nothing. And that's why Donald Trump has a seething hatred now of Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was very instrumental of getting him into the White House, as well as Thomas Massey. And now he hates them and their low IQs and their despicable, because this is damaging to Israel. And I'm a Jewish president, the first Jewish president. You didn't hear that. You didn't hear that. That I'm a Jewish president. You didn't hear that. It's like If you walks like a duck, it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. So Donald Trump is definitely a Jewish president. He does everything for Israel, even, I don't know, he does some things for America too, but it's like they're equal, Israel and the United States. But he has to do that, otherwise, if he wasn't showing some sympathy towards America, which all the things he does for America is always somehow beneficial to Israel as well. I wonder how that works. It's kind of like Jeffrey Epstein. Everything he did was for Israel as well. Just strange. I don't know. It's just a coincidence. You guys all know. So anyway, you guys know what I'm getting at anyway. So, but all these people, they play like they're on your side sometimes, and then, and then they show their hand at some point in time, and it sounds like a president even, they can act like, we're going to lock up all the pedophiles. We're going to stop the wars. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. But, part of this, what I'm going to be telling you today is, that Donald Trump is sending more money's worth of weapons to Ukraine every month than Joe Biden did. As a matter of fact, more than double, more than twice as much. Even if America is supposedly not paying for it, that it's Europe supposedly is paying for it. And I kind of even question that. I don't have access to the books. Maybe I wouldn't know what they're saying anyway if I saw it. But how do we know that Europe is paying for that? You would think they would be really complaining right now. And then why is it that Europe keeps adding supplemental money if they're already paying so much for all these weapons? So why are they putting supplemental money into it as well? And then why is Rheinmetall, like I told you in one video, also going out of their way to make as much 55 millimeter shells for Ukraine as possible if the United States is sending all this, but Germany is already paying all that money? So why would Germany pay even lots more money if they're already paying? I don't know. It's just curious. So, and remember U2, the band U2, I used to love, and they were good. I'll tell you what, I don't think they were always, like pro-Israel and, pro-globalist elites, pro-pedophiles, like they are now. They're pro all of these people. I don't think they always were. I think maybe they won them over, and a lot of times you can do that, obviously, with blackmail. A lot of people said that Donald Trump is compromised. He might be. I don't know. He might be. Maybe that just tipped him over the edge a little bit more. But he's always been kind of maybe pro-Israel, pro-Jewish, because he is Jewish, by the way. And maybe they got the goods on him from this Epstein stuff. Maybe they're holding all the real juicy things that have to do with Donald Trump. Anyway, and that's, some people say they're positive that that's what it's all about. So, wow. Now, these people, they don't represent their own countries most of the time. They don't represent humanity either. They're out for themselves, and they're out for their kicks, a lot of this stuff, and for money and their privileges and things. Very sickening when you know your leaders are like that. And I've noticed that for a long time. I had hope for Donald Trump. I didn't say Donald Trump was going to be great or all that sort of thing. I said he seems like he's going to be, I was saying that all the time. I always had a little bit of suspicion in the back of my head. But now since I've moved to Belarus, I'm noticing that the leader here, he is for the people. It's like, wow. And even Vladimir Putin is, like everybody's saying, oh, he's the richest man in the world. But how come I don't see it? Where's his yachts? Where is all this? And if he's so rich, why is he spending all of his friggin' time, going to all of these events every single day for year after year after year, and he's getting older. So why isn't he back enjoying his hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars? Obviously, it's a lie. But anyway, a lot of these people, they sold out on us, like U2 and Donald Trump, apparently, or Donald Trump maybe always was, maybe, I don't know. Ben Shapiro, come on, Ben Shapiro, Mark Levine, oh, come on, sold out on us. Ted Cruz, or what's his name? Lindsey Graham. I mean, it's a really pathetic. Laura Loomer. I mean, you get the huge list. Anyway, but nobody's allowed to make a move. Otherwise, Israel is going to get you. There's also pleading. There's also emails in there, like people pleading for their life. There is in the Epstein files. It's absolutely incredible. I didn't kill him, I promise you, and all that, and I have this, and my children, and I care of, my son, and nothing to happen to my son, and to Epstein, written to Epstein. Anyway. But then any of these guys, Donald Trump, why does he support the genocide of these tens of thousands of children? And like they said, nobody knows how many people died in Gaza. And then some people say 70,000 because that's the only bodies so far that they have come up with. Well, what about now if they're clearing the rubble? If they are, as much as they can, they're probably finding more. And what is it like? It's like over 300,000 people are missing. So, what happened to them? They just, a lot of people were blown into millions of pieces. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. But they're not going to find any bodies. But little pieces of bone, the size of a penny, all that's left of a lot of those people. But Putin did it. Jeez. Yeah, all these children, also a lot of children from agencies and people, and then, all about Ukraine. And anyway, okay, enough of that for now anyway. Alice Weidel. I forgot if it's I before E or E, in Germany. Weidel. She gave a talk at a party conference, a convention, I guess is what you say, and asked if the German government is destroying the German economy by making the cost of energy the most expensive in Europe. Is it through ideology, stupidity, or sabotage? And maybe you could say maybe all of the above. It could very well be. Oh, the sun is shining. I should pull the drapes here. So, but she said Germany just, I remember the days, and you saw it coming. You'd have to be really stupid, because you see Germany cutting off their oil from Russia, and you'd say, why? Where are they going to get the oil? Where are they going to get the gas? Where are they going to get the gas? The Nord Streams and the oil with, the pipelines and all that sort of thing. Well, why did they build them in the first place if they didn't need them? So how come they're cutting it off? How come they're cutting off the nuclear power when it's very cheap and it's safe 99% time if you do what you're supposed to do? Unless America built it in Japan or someplace like that, or the Ukrainians are in charge of maintenance of it, like in Chernobyl, which they screwed up and made shortcuts and didn't do things probably that they were supposed to do, very obviously, or unsafe, like the one that the United States built in, what's it called? I was going to say Fukushima. I don't know. Anyway, over there, that one melted down, spilled all kinds of toxic water. Great for the fish, right? Into the ocean, and then if they didn't spill, they dumped it in there. I mean, But anyway, they got rid of it all. And Alice from the AfD, this is Alternative for Deutschland, who is the most popular party in Germany, by the way, which of course, even though they try to hide it, and they want to ban the party, they want to get rid of it, they want to outlaw the party, and they're trying to say that they're linked to Nazis. Yeah, so they're anti-war, they don't want a war, they want to make friends with Russia, but yet Merz and Olaf Scholz, they liked Ukraine, that has the Azov battalion, in other words, Nazis, but they're not far right. So who is far right? And I guess, the AfD is actually a center. They're a center party. And if you want to look at far right, you would look at those that are on the left, which is the SPD. They're far right. That's what I mean. I don't like these left and right, because what is left and what is right? So far right is fascist, even though Adolf Hitler was a socialist, and so was Mussolini, but yet far right and far left, but they say the left is communism and socialism, but the far right is Nazism, even though the left is on the right. It's all a big friggin' joke. So the definition changes all the time. I liked it when Candace Owens said, well, who's in charge of definitions? You know, it's absolutely incredible. Even the word fascism, it used to be a sense referring to economics. And now it has to do with social, you know, things like anti this. And I mean, it's incredible. Oh, I don't know. You can talk all day about that. You got to sit back and look and start going. You can make videos about how the definitions of everything has changed, and nobody friggin' knows what the heck it means anymore. I don't know. So if you guys don't know, I mean, don't worry about it because nobody knows. Or you can just go out and blurt it out, and, you know, calling somebody that everybody thinks is on the left, you can say that they're on the right. You know, I mean, you get away with it very easily, and then you can make your case. Very simple as well. So, okay. So she said that Germany just traded their dependence from Russian oil to get gas. They traded their dependency on Russian gas for U.S. gas, which is 5 times more expensive, she said. It might be not quite 5 times more, but it's far more expensive. You pay far, far more, and you had to build all of these containers and things for the liquid natural gas when Germany had it in a friggin' pipeline. And then you had some storage things just to hold off for a while, but it was all in the pipeline. And you can just turn it on and turn it off, and it's just sitting there. But now they have to build these container things all over Germany to store the liquid natural gas, and yet pay 5 times more for it. And now they're under the thumb of the United States. And then look at Donald Trump, what he's doing now with these, you know, you do what I tell you to, or tariffs, things like that. So Alice Weidel was saying, so where do we sit now? She said, where are we sitting now? Yeah, absolutely incredible. And you knew this was coming. I saw that coming years ago. I knew it, and I knew every single step of it. I should have made a video predicting every single step of it. Duke was right, I should say. Yeah. Okay. So now they have the most expensive energy costs in all of Europe, at least. Wow. So in Italy, that's what I was going to talk about. There was a CCTV video released. A big, huge Romanian guy. I guess they caught these people because otherwise, how do they know? But anyway, this guy, and it was like going through like these, you know, sliding door things, you know, automatic doors, you know, going maybe into a shopping mall or something like that. I think some lady with her small little girl walking out. The girl looked maybe 4 years old, might even be younger. I don't know. It's like, you know, can walk on her own. The little girl, obviously on her own. So it was very small. And then some guy coming in, a big guy, or was it coming out? He was probably going out and she was going in, obviously. But anyway, this guy going out, and he tried to snap up this little girl. He grabbed this blonde girl. She was a blonde woman with a bright blonde girl's hair, so maybe it makes you wonder if it was for somebody. So they grabbed this girl, this little girl, and try to run, and the mother is hanging on to the hand of this girl, and then it goes off of the camera, so you didn't know. But you see some men even coming and running in, or running out, I guess. So anyway, they snapped this guy, but what he did, he snapped the femur bone of the little girl. So he broke her bone, you know, by pulling on her leg to try to take her from this woman, you know. And who was it for? Was it for the elites to have their way with this cute little blonde girl, or who knows what, you know? And you see this stuff going down. It's really incredible. I'm going to take this and wait a minute. I'm going to put this on pause, and I'm going to try to get rid of the sun in my face, if you don't mind. Back again. Changing light, I guess, isn't it? Still reflecting light. Oh, it's from this side over here. Yes. Okay, let's keep going here. Long video. I knew it, obviously. And I'm more than halfway done, I guess. Okay, the Board of Peace. It's like a piece of wood. It's a piece of wood. Board of Peace. A piece of board. No, the Board of Peace. Donald Trump's Board of Peace. What a friggin' name. Why didn't he call it the Peace Board or something else? You know, a Board of Peace. Brilliant. But anyway, his Board of Peace. It looks like this Board of Peace is nothing but a money source for his rich resort. And right now, I guess it's up to $5 billion that he's been getting. I guess that something with Putin. I don't think that Putin has yet put in 5 billion or his $1 billion, and it's supposed to be done. And he is actually the one that said at first. Putin says to put in, as long as it's from these frozen assets that are in the United States, and I can't remember how many billions the United States is holding, but he said you take a billion from that and apply it to the Board of Peace, and then it goes to Gaza. He said he will do that and go on this Board of Peace as long as this money goes to Gaza. And I don't know that he has actually consented. And remember, they said, well, they're going to be looking at this and all that sort of thing. And I don't know. Apparently, I don't know if Lukashenko has consented, but it's not that all the countries have to put in a billion. I guess that, what does that make you, like a lifetime member or something like that? And I think it's some other number, and you get it for, I can't remember. I put the numbers out. If you pay some money or it's free and you get to stay on for some time or some crap. Anyway, it's a way to get money. And obviously, what this money is going to be used for, it's going to be the free money. And they even might build, for a lot of that, they might be building some Palestinian houses for the Palestinian, Gaza, for the Gaza people. They might be doing that. But that's going to be in Gaza, and that's going to be probably all for the resort. Those are going to be the homes for the staff that goes and washes the dishes, does the cooking, washes the bed sheets and the tablecloths, sweeps the porches, and things like that. For all of these people that are, the Epstein class that are going to be coming there to, stretch out there in the luxury Riviera of the Middle East. And so that money is going to be, it's going to be helping Donald Trump, but a lot of that money obviously is going to be going into the price of these hotels. So it's like a cunning plan. So they don't have to get any kind of bank loans necessarily. I mean, they'll be doing that. Certainly, it's going to be probably costing a lot more because they want to make this a big, huge thing like a Waikiki Beach or something like even better, apparently, because it's going to be mostly for rich people. Probably not just the Epstein class, the budding Epstein class, the wannabe Epstein class. That's probably a lot of people that are going to be going there. And as you guys know, and I'd been there before, I lived on this in this one country, and they have an exclusive island where people own houses like a guy named Arnold Schwarzenegger, Pierce Brosnan, the royal family of England, and Tommy Hilfiger, and Mick Jagger lives there permanently, Bryan Adams, Shania Twain, and a lot of, they have properties there, and you can't even go to that island unless you get an invitation from somebody who has a house on there. And I went there, and I guess I didn't stay there. To stay there, especially if you're even working there, if you're working and building on these things, you fly back to the main island because it costs way too much to stay there. I guess the very minimum, I think, to stay there for 1 week is $33,000. That's the minimum for people to stay there for 1 week. And I've stayed on places where it costs, I don't know, how much is it? $200 a night? No, more than that. 1,000. That's what it was. 1,000. It's been a long time. Costs $1,000 per night per person to stay on some of those places. But I've been to that one. I was there at Tommy Hilfiger's house, I guess, and it's, a nice thing there, and staff, a lot of people, and, anyway, but it's, those are actually, a lot of them are, actually, those are budding Epstein people, because when I went there, I guess the person that invited me there was, he only had, I don't know, maybe, I guess it was in British pounds, it was like 2.7 million British pounds. At least that's what it's listed at. And I don't know, he had Rolls Royces and lots of properties all over and mansions and, and these things like that. So as an investor, but anyway, the same kind of a deal, I guess. That one's probably a lot nicer because, they had a lot of these people like I said, like Mick Jagger lives there and all that. I didn't meet any of them though, but I was only there for like 1 day. So, but, okay. Where was I? Okay. But some of that, like I said, money is going to be probably going to doing things for Palestinian people, but that's only those people that are going to be serving, you know, this resort at Gaza. And of course, they haven't even really taken over the entirety of it yet. And I think maybe a lot of this is going to be like the infrastructure. This $5 billion they got so far, I'll bet they're going to be holding that off until they get all, they want the seafront property, obviously. And they don't have any of that yet. So that's coming. I don't think they have any of that yet, even though they've taken more than half of the Gaza Strip, just like the West Bank, and there's stuff going on there too. Because obviously, as you guys all know, Israel has their president sitting in the White House now. So that's why they're moving very quickly right now to get a lot of this stuff done, to get their enemies knocked off if they possibly can. They're bombing Lebanon all the time, just yesterday, by the way, and they're bombing them all the time. And Syria, I don't know, maybe they've cooled down a little bit because, anyway, they got their man in charge of Syria. As you know, they're Al-Qaeda and ISIS are the proxy militaries of Israel, United States, and the West and all that. I mean, you guys all know that. That's an undeniable fact. At least everybody that watches my channel knows that. Because how many people have got to tell you and all this evidence, and I've been seeing this stuff for years and years and years, that the U.S. is never really bombing any ISIS people. They're bombing opponents of ISIS and things. There's a lot of different people trying to get power and take over little areas in Syria after the United States kicked that one off. So anyway, and Sybil Edmonds told us all about that long before that was happened, that the United States, and they were training people, a smaller amount in Jordan, but most of them in Turkey, came in Turkish newspapers, the United States training these proxy military people for years, and then getting the weapons. Hillary Clinton was instrumental in that, getting the weapons from Libya and transferring them all over to Syria, but you guys all know this stuff. Okay. So, $5 billion. So, Kushner, Netanyahu, Trump, Witkoff probably involved in that one too, real estate moguls. I knew one real estate mogul, in the Caribbean. He started spreading out all over the place, but he was corrupt as anything. You can look him up online too. His name is Dave Ames, and that's Harlequin Resorts. So they started the first one on there, and he promised me. He said he's going to buy my macadamia nuts, because I had a lot of macadamia nut trees, and he wanted my coffee. I'm gonna, I'll get your coffee and all that. But anyway, I don't know where he's at now. He fled there, and he was a multimillionaire, and his son was involved in teak orchards in Central America, and I think that was a big con. They were, I don't know, there was some hundreds of millions of dollars. They, shafted people. But Dave Ames, so look him up under Harlequin. Harlequin, resorts, properties. I started in St. Vincent and then going to St. Lucia and all kinds of things, but a lot of things. And then I sat with the general manager of that resort, and he was telling me that, because they started going after him and trying to blame it all on him. He said, yeah, and I told them, if they do that, I'm going to start exposing you. And so they, okay. And they started doing it in the newspapers and everything, and all the world press all over saying, he was the guy that was doing it all, and he was a decent guy. So, but he was telling me, I'm going to, if they do that, he said he told them if they do that, he's going to go after them. That was absolutely interesting. I have to think of all these times I'm, connected with, investors and politicians and all this. It's all kind of fun. So anyway, but this stuff, so when you think about this $5 billion that Donald Trump is happy that he's gotten right now, so this is money they don't have to pay interest on in any kind of a bank loans or anywhere. They don't have to invest it and bite their nails. Oh, am I going to get return on my investment or not? This is basically free friggin' money. Maybe it's, some of these leaders would say, like, we're pretty dumb to have been giving him $1 billion to be on his board of peace, which mostly is just to gather this money to build his absolutely luxury resort, apparently. I mean, it's a big scam right there, but nobody knows it yet. Only you and I just told you guys. So it's a cunning plan. And like I said, I've seen it before. That's what I'm telling you about this right now. But they did it back in the Caribbean with time sharing, and they took a lot of these, unfortunately, these people and their life savings, from their, and they promised them these great returns. So like they put this money into these timeshare things and all that sort of a deal. And then when I was on an airplane and I was flying and I sat next to some lady and her friend was sitting in the seat in front, and they were telling me, and it was like not very much money. They were coming from the UK. I was flying from the UK, and it was not very much money that they were paying to go stay on that resort. And I was thinking, well, that's not much. And I guess maybe they're supposed to be spending a lot of money while they're there. I've forgotten a lot of this stuff, but there's strange stuff. They're trying to piece back all this stuff together and get a really nice stories for you guys. So many people are trying to tell Iran that they should get a nuclear weapon. So many people, so many said, you get the USA and Israel off your back. Look at what happened in North Korea. How many people have said it? I say it many times. You get the USA off your back. You get a nuclear weapon, and they say, okay, well, we'll leave you alone now. But that advice has not escaped some other people's, though. If you see how Donald Trump is acting, along with his thing about Greenland and kidnapping a leader from a country, a democratically elected leader, a lot of people, Poland, I'll just get to the point. Poland and Germany are saying, Pistorius, he's the defense minister of Germany even now, and I think it was the president of Poland said, well, we got to get our own nukes. They're talking about that. Just within the last couple of days, they're talking about getting nuclear weapons. But it's not to go against the United States necessarily. And of course, Poland wants to use it against Russia, just like Ukraine wants a nuclear weapon. They would have used it a long time ago against Russia. They would have dropped it on Moscow if they had a nuclear weapon. And that is the main thing about nuclear weapons. Eventually you're going to get some crazy. And the more people you get that have these nuclear weapons, the more you're eventually going to get some kind of a crazy person, and I'll tell you what, if they talk about the Ayatollah as being crazy, I'll tell you what, I would 1,000 times rather trust the Ayatollah with a nuclear weapon than I would Benjamin Netanyahu or Trump. The deal is they have nuclear weapons, so we got to keep biting our fingernails like this doomsday clock. What is it, a couple seconds to midnight already? But they try to make us think, oh, the Iranians, they're crazy people. Like I said, I would trust the Ayatollah Khomeini 1,000 times more than I would trust these other two jokers that have it. And then look you got Macron, they got nuclear weapons as well. Germany's normally been a trustworthy country, but I wouldn't even think that Merz would drop a nuclear bomb. I don't think so. Poland, I don't know. Now, I don't know about Poland. Poland will use that as a threat, and then when they want to go in and take over Belarus, why are they trying to build the most powerful military in all of Europe? No, they're not going to plan on using it. Nobody was going to want to attack Poland. Nobody's trying to. Nobody has shown any indication whatsoever. You guys all know. What about Finland? They had neutrality, and they even had a fairly strong army. I don't know if they're trying to get nuclear weapons, but anyway, they wanted to get rid of their neutrality. Bunch of crazy crap. Anyway, so a lot of these people, Poland, the Baltics, Germany, the United States, they're all desperate to conquer Russia. They want to conquer Russia. The UK, and it's like, we know some of these general reasons why, to get resources and all that sort of thing. But it's like, what the friggin', is it worth it? And they don't give a crap about killing a whole bunch of their people if a lot of people die. They don't give a crap about that. So I don't know if it's worth it. That's the Epstein class. They don't give a crap about our peon lives. We're the ones that are going to die, not them. I mean, think about it. They have their bomb shelters if push comes to shove. I don't know. So let's see. Speaking of Germany, Merz, even the other day, what is it, yesterday? No, 2 days ago, I think. He always said, again, I think I mentioned this at the beginning, that, the old world order, the rules-based order or whatever is over. And it's, but I'm a conspiracy theorist. He's not. The leaders of the countries and the foreign ministers, they're not, but I am. That's what YouTube tells you, Google, I guess, anyway. It's incredible. I'm repeating what they said, and yet I'm the conspiracy theorist. Wow. Or even Mark Carney, but he said it's ruptured. He didn't say it's gone. He said it's ruptured. He was actually the first, so he had to ease it in. It's like slowly easing your foot into your shoe, So he had to say it's ruptured, and now these other guys get out there. Marco Rubio said it's gone. So did Mertz and other people. Anyway, and at least Mark Carney, he was at least good enough to say if it ever existed. The rules-based order never really did. Anyway, yeah, we make the rules for you guys. We don't have to follow them. You do. That's the U.S. and of course Israel to do whatever they want to do, and whoever's the chosen minion of the week. I don't know. Yeah. So 2 days ago, Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, from the Holland Dutch guy, he said the U.S. will be sending over $1 billion worth of weapons to Ukraine each month. Remember Joe Biden? And I was even mentioning it in videos. I think he was like sending, it seemed like, it was like, and I'm not even sure now, but in any case, it was much less than that. It was less than half of what Donald Trump is sending for weapons to Ukraine, but supposedly having Europe pay for that. So it's actually more than $1 billion, because it's totals up, at least according to Mark Rutte, and I saw it at another source. It totals up to be $15 billion for the year 2026, which means more than $1 billion a month. And I was thinking, if I'm not mistaken, Joe Biden was sending around 300 to 400 million every month. Wow. Trump's sending a lot more. Who pays for it, I don't know. But yet he wants peace. Gosh, he is a peace president. But I guess Donald Trump is trying to tell us that, well, making money is far more important than making peace. And maybe that's the whole impetus behind why he was supporting Israel to bomb and kill the Palestinians to get Gaza for a luxury resort, because making money is far more important than the useless eaters' lives, now isn't it? That's why he has nothing against protecting the pedophiles, because those are people that make money. And the rest of us, this useless eaters, we're just instruments. We're just tools. We're just whatever we are. Something to throw away when it's used up, like not a pair of old underwear, like a used tube of toothpaste, I guess. But anyway, like I said, Donald Trump is a big trickster as well. Wow. Maybe we were better under Biden. So money for the military-industrial complex, and Trump ends up looking like a peace guy. He keeps talking about peace. Oh, peace in Ukraine. Zelensky better take his chance while I'm sending over $1 billion to him every month to make war. So I will look like a peace president. Oh, he's running out of time, Zelensky. But actually the only threat is to cut Russia's money, to get rid of all of Russia's customers. India, threaten them. Sanctions, all of this sort of thing. Because, weaken Russia. So maybe it'll keep on going longer if Ukraine gets stronger. And anyway, you guys all know that this is going to continue for quite some time. And we're hearing for 2 years or 3 years, oh, Ukraine is on the ropes. It's gone. It's over for Ukraine. Heard it from even good people. Even I don't even like to say bad things about like Scott Ritter and all that, because or Douglas McGregor and anybody that's saying, because it was, you think Ukraine is losing all the way, but it's like it was never that bad, I guess. And they don't care. I mean, you would think if it was a regular humanitarian, at least a little bit of humanitarian thinking in their head, maybe they would have sued for peace long ago, but they don't really care. And Zelensky is also in the Epstein class, obviously. So the peons don't matter. Yeah. So fill the pockets of his MIC friends and look like a peacemaker. Yeah, and Zelensky, talking about Zelensky, he's always talking about Putin. Obviously, you guys hear every single speech. He can't do a speech without slamming Putin, and a lot of times Orban. And of course, he's infatuated with the thought of the death of Putin. And I wonder what he's thinking is going to happen if Putin is gone. Who is going to be there? What if it's Dmitry Medvedev, who's a far bigger war hawk than Vladimir Putin? Putin is definitely a moderate. There's no other way to describe Vladimir Putin than being a moderate. Dmitry Medvedev is probably going to be more of a hawk. It's not like John Bolton being in the White House or something, but it's, I don't know. And I think Medvedev has even talked about Odessa and Kharkiv, and I don't know if Putin has ever mentioned that. But a lot of Russians, they don't want this thing to end without Russia getting back, being reunited with Odessa and probably even Kharkiv. Because those are Russian cities, by the way. Doesn't matter what Ukraine says. So, as a matter of fact, Kiev is even a Russian city. The Kievan Rus. Yeah, but Zelensky, he's got to think like if Putin dies, Russia is gone or something like that. Like Putin controls everything. Wow. Incredible. Even if Zelensky's gone, I don't know. It's going to be another Nazi in charge. Yeah. But this past days, Zelensky's talking as if when Putin's gone, he's still going to be there. You never know. You never know. Fate takes strange turns, Whether he's going to be there or not, I don't know. But obviously one day Putin's going to be gone. One day Zelensky's going to be gone. But I guess apparently Zelensky intends on staying there and outlasting Putin. I don't know if it means in life or if he means as a leader of their country. Yeah. But he's trying to, I don't know if he's trying to convey a message or if he's trying to convince himself that Russia will be a pushover when Putin is gone. Forgetting, like I just said, that Putin is actually a moderate. So, we'll see. So, Ukraine, everybody knows Ukraine is blocking the transit of gas. Even Ukraine admits it. They're blocking the transit of oil through the pipeline that goes to Western Europe or Eastern Europe, particularly Hungary, the Druzhba pipeline. It's been shut off since January 27th. And as you know, they have elections coming, I just said, in Hungary, and that's mostly for that reason, to disrupt the elections, I guess. Yeah. Okay, Google has come out. This is incredible. And, it makes you, some might be, obviously they mix, that's how they do it. That's the best way to fool people, is you mix fact with fiction. So there was some fact that they put a lot of these groups, and then maybe they really do exist. I'm guessing that they do. But Google has their own. It's called the GTIF. It's Friday. The GTIF, which is the Google Threat Intelligence Group. And they say that Russia, Iran, and North Korea, I guess that's the boogeyman gang. I guess that's what I guess they're trying to say. They're the boogeyman gang. But I don't know. They didn't give them a name. But I guess it's the GTIG gang, maybe. The boogeyman gang. That they're using espionage. They didn't. It was a pretty strange thing. It's kind of a thing that talked a lot, didn't say much of anything. Nothing definite and no facts whatsoever. No facts. They had facts, yes. They had descriptions of groups and things like that. But they didn't show anything that was anything conclusive that these countries are having cyber attacks or any kind of attacks, all kinds of different, mostly cyber and espionage against, they didn't even say who. I guess the West. They didn't even say who, but they said that these guys, I don't know, they're trying to create a new axis of evil, I think. Maybe they're just trying to get a name for themselves. The Google Axis of Evil group, I don't know. Yeah, but they're using espionage to target and subvert, in large part, defense entities, cyber espionage, hackers, and hackers, intrusions, and are there methods, I guess, that they're going to be doing intrusions. And of course, they're so good that they avoid detection. It's kind of like the, I don't know, invisible soldiers and things like that. Or, I don't know. And it's, in other words, it's a bunch of BS, I think. But there was actually a lot of information, though. You can actually get something from. Just cut out the booga wooga, and I think it's listed on Google. But if you look that up, GTIG, or maybe the Google Threat Intelligence Group, and you will find that article there. And they have the flags of all of these countries, you know, that they're putting in the boogeyman group. And maybe if somebody else wants to wade through all that crap, I didn't want to at all. You can write in the comments or something, or that might take too long. Maybe a little bit more about what it's all about. Yeah. So as Israel is now taking over more, as their president is in the White House, as you know, they're now, it's kind of an experiment, I'm guessing, but they're going to have tear gas drones. And I think they're testing them during Ramadan in the West Bank. And Ramadan starts tomorrow. Tomorrow is the beginning of Ramadan, and it goes, I guess, till the 19th of March. And of course, I think the last week is the big one. But Israel is calling their tear gas drones, I don't know if they called it the Operation Surprise Egg, but it's, I don't know, Surprise Egg Operation, maybe. Is that because it's around Easter? I don't know. That should be directed against Christians too, maybe. Easter eggs? Anyway, that's what it's all about. Okay, some other good news for any wackos out there that are erroneously on my channel that you don't fit here in any way. You have to go to Epstein's channels if he has any, maybe. Oh, let me first tell you about that. There's some girl that she wrote something, and I think that was a couple of months ago. She said, and I didn't know, who's this about? And I thought, oh, it's to Epstein. But it said, I know you're still alive, and all this sort of a thing. And I can't remember, there was, that in chess, the queen always wins or something like that. But anyway, it was interesting. Anyway, it's some girl, unfortunately, that was taken, it was a victim that was taken advantage of. She wrote that. Okay, now, for all of you Epstein fans, the guys that like Epstein and all that, oh gosh, a second. The UK is now allowing children as young as 7 to transition. In other words, to whack off their junk, or to get some junk sewn onto them somehow, or skin pulled to make it look like they got some. I have not the faintest idea on what they do for women. But anyway, you can transition now, starting at age 7. Wow! You know, child-friendly transitioning. Oh gosh, you know, and it's like sickening because these children, they don't have any cognitive idea yet on what all this stuff is. I remember even, and I you know, it's embarrassing to admit it, and I was like, I know I was like, because we were still in, we moved from Montana to Seattle area when I was 5 years old, and it was still in Montana in a little house, and so I must have been like maybe 4 years old, and I remember saying to my parents like, oh, I want to marry daddy. I want to marry daddy. It's like I'm a boy and I'm 4 years old and stuff. So, I mean, and they thought that some kid who's 7 years old doesn't really know. I mean, I tell you what, and then transition, there's some sickening stuff out there. And it comes right from the governments even. Epstein governments, man alive. This stuff is really defining us. At least this generation, not here in Belarus, thankfully. And I can see why a lot of people now, at least from the West, are heck, you had a lot of people moving from these areas to the West. And I think a lot of that is coming back. And there's like even big, large sections of Moscow even becoming American sections, you know, where Americans are moving to. And like a lot of English-speaking people, a lot of Australians coming up, things like that. And, you know, I just wish they had some mountains and the winter was a little bit shorter. That's the only mistakes that the government made, I think. Anyway, everybody, thanks for joining me for this one. Sorry it's so long, but I hope it was interesting, and I hope you guys learned something. Make a comment. Hey, I'd like to get some input or output or some kind of put, you know, stock options, puts, or whatever like that, to know how things are going. And make sure you hit the subscribe button if you made it this far on the video, and I hope you did. Thanks, everybody, and I'll See you next time. Oh, tomorrow I'll be making maybe a video, but I might be going up late. I'm going to be traveling, and I'll record inside of a train. It's called a regional train, I believe, but it actually goes from one end of Belarus to the other. It's not regional. I guess regional it's a small country, I guess, you know. So anyway, you get the idea. Nice train anyway. I believe we're taking that one. So I'm not sure which train we're getting on because it's an earlier morning one. Might just be a sleeper train. Anyway, we'll see. Okay, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.